My name is Thomas Jarek, and I'm one of the software engineer interns here at DevCycle. Just wanted to kick things off by thanking everyone for coming. This is our second APIs and IPAs event, and we've got some great speakers here today. And we also have some amazing speakers lined up for our September and our October events. So yeah, we're really excited to see this meetup take off, and we look forward to seeing you at lots more events to come. For now, I'm just going to give a quick intro to DevCycle and myself. DevCycle is a simple and powerful tool used to make it easy to keep everyone in the loop on the status of feature flags across all environments. Throughout my time here in my co-op term, I've worked on a lot of cool stuff, and one of the things I worked on was actually the metrics feature. This was a feature we launched a few months ago that allows users to track metrics related to feature flags under their projects, such as calculating the amount of times a user visits a specific feature and the average size of an API call per user. These metrics can offer great insight to the organization and are a great analytical tool when using DevCycle. And now I'd love to introduce our first speakers tonight from the Rangle team, who we co-host these events with. We have Nataliya and Scott, both software developers at Rangle, and they're going to be speaking about headless architecture, from the benefits of decoupling your front ends to be framework agnostic, to the time and money saved by making the content authoring experience accessible to non-technical staff. They'll also be sharing a sneak peek at how Rangle is currently using a headless CMS to revamp their site. So I'll pass it off to them.
Lots of wires, y'all.
Can you all hear me? Okay, good evening everyone, and thank you for joining us here tonight. As was mentioned, my name is Scott, and this is my friend and colleague Nataliya.
Hello.
And we're both software developers and consultants at Rangle. Now, if you don't know about Rangle, we are a modern digital consultancy, and we partner with global brands and funded scale-ups to really help them build their next generation products and digital experience platforms. Now, today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about headless CMSs and the reason that we love them. Now, since this is a beer-themed meetup, we were kind of talking about this and we were saying, hey, having a little bit of head or foam on your beer is a good thing. But by the end of this talk, we're hoping to convince you that chopping the head off of your CMS can completely transform your workflow. So a brief overview of what we're going to be going over today. We're first going to just talk about what a headless CMS is, make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're speaking the same language. Then we're going to go over some of the benefits of using a headless CMS, reasons that we love them and hope that you will love them too. We're going to look at a few different ways that we've implemented headless CMSs with some of our clients at Rangle. And finally, we're going to do a quick demo on how we're using headless CMS to rebuild the Rangle website. So we have lots to go over, not a lot of time, so I'm going to pass it off to Nataliya to kick things off.
Thank you. All right, y'all. So, what is a headless CMS, a content management system? Let's talk about it. So you may be familiar with a traditional CMS experience, something like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal. You may have heard the names legacy CMS or monolithic CMS. These are digital platforms for content management that are all in one. So your content and your visuals all live together in one place, in the one platform. So what does it actually mean to go headless for your CMS? It's a little bit different. Simply put, headless CMS provides the authoring content management platform separate from your presentation layer, separate from the head. You cut it off. So your visual layer, your design system, your components, all of that, it lives in a completely different place from your authored content. Your CMS does not care what your visuals look like at all. It just contains your content and asks you to do something with it. So let's talk more about that. Hopefully you guys can see these pictures a little bit far. Some people might be a little farther away. But on the left here in orange is kind of a representation of a traditional CMS. This is where something like your content, your front end, your templates, your CSS, all of your data all lives in one space here in the one platform. This means that you've got a little bit less flexibility. You're forced to write your code in like the specific language that your CMS requires. Think like WordPress or WordPress with PHP, for example. And your visuals and content are intimately connected. So on the right in the purple, we've got a representation of the headless CMS experience, something like Contentful or Sanity, which we'll talk a little bit more about. This is framework agnostic. You can develop in the front end any JavaScript framework you'd like, React, Vue, Angular, and your content, again, lives in the CMS. Your front end code, all of that, in React, all of that, lives completely separate. So the connection between the actual content, your data, and your visuals all happen through the API. So you just, is this still working?
No.
It's not still working? Can we still hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'll not use it then. Anyway, so it all connects through the API experience. IPAs, APIs, that's why we're here. So should you go headless? If your interest is piqued, let's take a look at why you might want to use headless for your next client project. Should you go headless? Maybe. We are really big fans of headless CMS, so we're just going to talk about why we love it. They are modern and scalable and super flexible. Because the content is separate from the code, technical and non-technical folks, so think like your developers, but also your marketers, your communicators, can all author content easily without any technical skill, or a little technical skill, but not a lot. This frees up your devs from having to do this kind of work and can free them up for more complex work. It can also save time and money because you don't need to wait for dev capacity. So your marketers can just make an update to the website or to the app without having to wait for anybody to do it for them. So again, saves time and money. Because your visual components are separate, they can be like dumb. They can just be completely visual. So they can accept data and then present the data. You don't need to do a lot of logic. It just connects to that API and gets that data. Let's see here. Oh, we mentioned that the headless framework is framework agnostic. So if your team is already working with React and you don't want to switch, great. Just keep on working with React, keep on working with Angular. Just use the technology that you're familiar with, and you can adopt the headless without making any other big changes. It's also really great for localized content. So if you have a storefront, for example, that needs French content but also English content, you don't need to have two separate code bases. Some organizations struggle a lot to deal with both. You can connect the two and do it all just in one place in your headless CMS. So this is all possible because it's just connected through the API, which is really wonderful. So now you're interested in headless. So Scott, do you want to talk a little bit about some strategies with headless CMS?
You know I do. Yeah, so we really hope that we've piqued your interest, whether you've worked with the headless CMS or not before, at least to look it up in the future. But we want to go over some different use cases of when we've experienced using a headless CMS before with some of our clients at Rangle. So the first kind of method I want to talk about is kind of called Authorable Components. And this approach is really using your headless CMS as mostly data storage more than anything else. Now, if you're using your headless CMS in this way, you are not able to create entire pages or layouts or even change the order of components on your page. It's really controlled about only the specific authored content that it displays in a place that you've already determined within your app. Now, this is great if you're working on a project or with clients where people may be less design savvy. You don't want them to move things around, potentially ruin the user experience. It's also great for clients who don't necessarily have a lot of new pages or designs. There's a pretty set scope. For example, I used this method on a client project where we were building a loyalty reward site. So it was a really fixed scope. They didn't need to add a lot of additional pages. So we were able to give them a very controlled version of this headless CMS. Now this GIF that's on the screen right now, I think is a really good example of how this kind of approach works. So if this was a site and we were using a headless CMS, what would end up happening is people could go into your CMS and add specific content for these different products. You could add potentially the product name, the image, the description, the price, but you wouldn't actually have control over where this shows up on your page. It's going to be set on your product page. You can't go and drop it onto your home page. You can't go and move it above your header. It's just the content that you add into your CMS will then go and render on the page. So again, this approach really great if you have some less design savvy clients, or again, you have a very fixed scope and don't need a lot of additional pages. Do you want to go over the next one, Nataliya?
You know I do. All right. So another approach is a bit more flexible. I'm gonna stand over these wires and make a fool. It's a little bit more flexible. It allows you to control the page layout and page creation, so your authors, whether they be marketers again or devs. So for example, again, maybe an e-commerce company has a lot of products coming out more frequently and they want to create pages for those products. You can use this approach to give them control over creating new pages for those products and also giving them the experience of being able to drag and drop different components on different pages in whatever order they please with their design system, for example. So it gives them a lot of flexibility. With the headless CMS in the code, the dev would probably go in and predetermine what kind of components can show up on which page. Like, I want these components on the home page and these components on the product page, but not, they don't maybe share components. So you kind of can still control a little bit about what the authors can do. So this is actually an approach that we love to work with clients because it is so flexible and because it means that their pages can be super dynamic. So a lot of clients really like this approach if they have the capacity to create these pages and keep up with them on their own. So that's a really great approach, number 2 that we have here. And then now Scott's going to take a look at how we are actually at Rangle using this approach with Headless CMS, Sanity.io specifically, to redesign our website. So we'll have a little bit of a demo.
Sweet. Yeah, so we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at how this all works. I know we've been talking very conceptually so far, and if you're like me, it helps to really see things out and how all the different pieces work together. So we're going to look at a couple things during this demo today. First, we're going to see an example of our code where we have one of these dumb components where it really just accepts data and displays it. Then we're going to actually hop over into our headless CMS. As Nataliya just mentioned, we're using Sanity for that. So you'll get a look and feel of the UI and how we author content on our new site on that. We're also going to make some edits and see how quickly they actually update on our live site, so you can really see how that authoring experience can really supercharge your workflow. And then we're also going to quickly look at code again, super high level, just to see how the two pieces connect through the API. So, to kick things off for this part, this is the code that we have for one of our dumb components, like we like to call it. And we're showing the quote component here. I know it might be small for some of you, but you can see here in the name, it does say quote. And you can see in a lot of this code, there's not a lot going on here. We have a lot of styled components that are really focused on the design and the layout of this, but everything else, all the data, is being passed in as a prop. So you can see these 3 props here at the top. We have attribution, quotation, and image. Now, these are very important names, and what we named them has a reason, and we're going to see that in just a second. I'm just going to pass this over to you and do a little laptop switch. Okay, so now we're going to go hop over into Sanity. Ooh, how exciting. A headless CMS. We're going to go into our specific pages that we have built here, and we're really going to be focused on our home page. So how we have the content set up here, you can kind of see over here on the right, we have all of the different data that's going to be showing on our Rangle homepage. And I have this here open in another tab. So you can see, like, in our hero banner here, you can see stuff like how it says digital experiences, this 4 non-negotiable attributes. That maps one-to-one with some of the data that we have here in this top hero section. But what I really want to focus on and look at today is some of this stuff here of this page content. And you can see there's a number of different components that we have showing here. One at the bottom. Who would have thought? It's a quote. And you can kind of see what that quote component, that dumb component that we were just looking at the code of a minute ago, looks like on our site. So you can see it down here in the bottom. Again, like we were looking at, it takes in what the actual quotation is, the image, all that good stuff. Now, if you want to go and change anything about this quote, you can just go and click into it. And I will make myself now the author.
And CIO of Staples.
Yes, now I own Staples. And then you can also drag and drop things to move them around different places on your page. So as you saw before, our quote was at the very bottom of the page. And now once I hit publish, we'll just give it a second, and it should go and update things to the right order. You can also go and add additional items. And like Nataliya was mentioning, you can predetermine what components are available to show on this page. So in this little drop down here, you can kind of see how you could add a blog card grid, you could add another quote, you could add a media module. So we've determined what scope of components can actually show on the page, and then anybody can go in and author, move things around. So if we come back here and we just give this another quick little refresh, we can now see this quote right here at the top of the page, moved around as we dragged and dropped it. So it makes it a really nice authoring experience and super snappy. So it makes creating new pages super easy and very, very scalable. Okay. So now that we've kind of seen how it visually looks, all the different pieces connecting together, I always like to look under the hood so we can see from the code perspective what's really going on. So we're gonna go pretty high level here, but this is the API call that we're making to the Headless CMS, to our Sanity site. And we're using Next.js to build our static site. And so this is a built-in method that comes with Next.js. But essentially what's happening is we're calling the CMS at build time so that we have really up-to-date information and it's super snappy on the site. So whenever you kind of go and log onto our homepage, you'll see the most up-to-date version of what we have reflected in Sanity. Now, how does this data actually get into our components, though? Up here on the screen now, we have a really rough outline of what our home page looks like. And you can see at the top here, we have a data prop. And that is simply passing in all that data from that previous step where we're getting the static props and passing them to the page so that it knows what's going on. In the next couple lines, you'll see these variables for the page and global. And the function that we're calling for that is called build page props. Now, what's happening there is we're taking the data that comes back from our Headless CMS and we're recursively going through it and mapping it to components that are in our design system. So this is where the naming really becomes important. So within Sanity, we have the component that can be added to the page called quote. And in our design system, we also have a component named quote. They have to match name for name so that it knows which component to show. We map through all that data, pass all the components, the props that they need, and it returns this beautiful JSX, which we render down here, and then you can see the page. So again, I know this was super quick and high level about how it works, but those are kind of how all the different pieces play together.
Thank you all for chatting with us about Headless. This is something that we really have been working with a lot of clients with, and we really, really love it. We will be mingling later with our IPAs, so please ask us questions if you have any. And thank you.